This is going to be your boy, DJ CometK, casting this series coming up between Kaiserklein and Garja. It's a part of the round of 16 of the new World Championship 2019 qualifiers. Of course, like I mentioned, this is the round of 16. It's a best of 5 series. The winner of this match only has to win one more match after this to be able to qualify for the top 8 LAN Invitational going to be held in Manchester, the United Kingdom, this July. And they're going to be facing off against NWC. But it's not lights out for the loser of this match as well. They'll be dropped down to the lower bracket round 4. They'll have 3 matches to win. But regardless, we're spawning to the north of the map with Kaiserklein, one of the top players, one of the top seeds of the tournament, occupying seed number 2. Kaiserklein, I think if you've been in the AoE3 community for even a short time, by now you've probably seen Kaiser's name, whether that be in Saturday SmackDown or Sunday SmackDown, held by Interjection and Mito, playing in some of the Escape AoE LAN Invitationals, or you just sort by rank in the ESOC lobby and see Kaiserklein hosting occasionally. He's certainly one of the top players, like I mentioned, seed number 2. He's a PR42 Brigadier General, and he is currently sitting around 2550 ELO, but I think after a losing streak against Sampukunku, he's actually sitting at 2450. Regardless, around 2500 ELO is about his skill level. Of course, he's our winner of the New Year's Classic. That was the most recent tournament held on ESOC, a Mono Civilization tournament where he played against Haza54321 in the finals. He's also the winner of the ESOC Grand Tour Season 1 and the winner of Sup Cup number 2. And actually, in Sup Cup number 2, Kaiserklein did meet Garja in the round of 8 and won that series 2-0. Kaiser is also the bronze medalist of the Spring 2017 Major and the winner of the 4th place winner of the Autumn 2017 Major and the War Chiefs Classic. And I think finally, in terms of a tournament record, Kaiserklein is the 2nd place, or the silver medalist for the Time to Micro tournament, which yours truly, Mr. CometK, actually won bronze in, and I actually defeated Garja in the round of 8. So, of course, Garja, a top 8 micro player, I would comfortably say he's maybe seed number 5 or seed number 4 in the micro competition. I do want to thank you, Jose Arregantio, for the $25 donation. Unfortunately, I didn't see the stream message. I'll check it after this game. Hopefully, I remember. But, of course, I should introduce our underdog for the fight. Underdog for this match. It's going to be Garja playing under _Riot. Of course, he's taking the color red, spawning in on Florida in the southwest. He's a player from Italy, and he's seed number 18 in this tournament. He's currently ranked PR34 Lieutenant Colonel, but he was at one point PR41 Major General, I believe, max. So quite similar to Kaiserklein at his peak. But it has been quite a while since his peak. You know, I think a lot of players like to say 2013 to 2014 was the heyday of Garja. Back in the PK Clan tournament days, Garja actually made it to the finals match of PK Clan tournament number 4, where he earned the silver medal title against Bonang in the finals. But since 2014, you know, he's kind of had a career of diminishing returns. At least on ESOC tournaments, the deepest run he's had was in, I think, Autumn 2016, where he played in the round of 8 against H2O. Now, H2O is kind of an understandable end stop to any tournament run, but of course, in any other tournament, Garja's only made it to either the round of 32 or the round of 16. So this being the round of 16 of the biggest AoE3 tournament in, over a decade, basically, kind of speaks to, you know, Garja staying in the loop, in the metagame, maybe a top 20 player for quite some time. And so while he is the underdog in this fight, don't count him out. And so, of course, we are seeing a France mirror to start off Game 1 on Florida. As for Kaiserklein Civilizations, of course, he's famously known as a German main, but he's also well-versed in France, as well as Ottoman, Russia, and Sioux. That's usually his general tournament lineup. Whereas Garja, on the other hand, is a bigger fan of Aztec and Iroquois, although he also plays quite a bit of Japan. And, you know, in general, I think he's just kind of well-versed with any civilization that he plays. He's kind of dabbled in everything for how long he's been playing. But just looking at the treasures so far, of course, both players, standard 3 start, nothing exceptional there. That's kind of what you would expect of a Franzmir. A stable going in the back, or kind of the side of Garja's base. A little bit of a skirmish, a contention around this 100 food treasure guarded by 2 outlaw blowgunners. Let's see who's actually leading on Explorer hit points. It's going to be Kaiserklein, especially with that native scout coming in. Not going to bode well for Garja's Explorer here, but he might be able to get some more damage in on this native scout. I don't know if Kaiserklein's actually going to let that die, but if Garja is pretty precarious about his position, or precise about his position with his native scout, he might have been able to snare that other scout, or at least get some hits on it before it was able to run away. But not the case here. In fact, I think now Garja is actually liable to lose a scout. Not the case. Both are going to get away, but it's just kind of a continual jousting around this treasure. And I think whoever is going to pick that one up is actually going to depend on the units in queue. Both players. Kaiserklein, of course, building a stable in the back of his base. 5 Hussars popping out for Kaiserklein at the top. 5 Huss still in queue for Riot. In fact, he's got 6 Huss in queue, so he's planning on making a second batch, at least for the time being. Popping out now, and this treasure did spawn a little bit closer to Garja's base, so I think his Hussars are going to be the first ones to collide. Actually, about the same timing. Still got to be very careful. This is going to be very interesting. Explorer going down for Kaiserklein, not quite yet, getting away. It's just going to be all about this Huss engagement. Who is DPSing down a single Hussar at the same time, running around a little bit. Garja's Huss not getting in some DPS. 2 down for Garja so far, only 1 down for Kaiserklein. A little bit proactive with the micro there, but it might have been too much. 3 Huss up for Garja. Down to 2, down to 1, down to 0. 2 Huss, 2 full HP Hussars still alive for Kaiserklein, but 4 reinforcing in the back there for Garja. Kaiserklein not being too keen on keeping those there. Or excuse me, pulling his 2 Hussars back. Garja with some micro as well. But another 4 reinforcing batch for Garja too, or excuse me, Kaiserklein, and that's going to swing the tides in his favor. 2 low HP Hussars, just going to be 3 low HP Hussars, just 1 full HP. While Kaiserklein has 5 full HP Hussars. Minimum being called for Garja, as well as the barracks coming up. Getting in some additional DPS, going to take down another 2 Hussars from Kaiserklein. Both Explorers dead, so neither were able to pick up that 100 food treasure, but it's not a terribly big deal if you look at just... if it means even 1 more Hussar lost there, it's still a bad trade to have picked up that treasure. Now, just going forward with the Minutemen there, trying to see if he can get some additional DPS in. Oh, not too keen. Let's see that. Another donation rolling in. I want to thank you. How to Talk, please, for the $50 donation. Of course, I think Garja would appreciate that money. Garja, take my energy. That's your message. But looking at this fight here, both on even military population. Garja a few villager seconds ahead in terms of just the TC time. Oh, but getting caught again. Let's see if he can escape those 3 Huss, doing a good job there. Gonna lose 1 for basically free, but that's alright. You know, there's still jousting, jockeying around for position, but I think what's more important is taking a look at the scores. Kaiserklein is already aging up to the Fortress Age. It seems like 700 wood was his 4th shipment, most likely. Let's take a look at the shipment sent. This is the 3rd, so he was sitting on some wood for a little bit there, but building some houses in the transition now. Garja also sitting on some wood. Still gathering the coin to age up, while Kaiserklein is just 15 seconds off from the Fortress Age. And there you go. Kaiserklein's actually going to pick up that treasure. Oh, in fact, the carry blowgunner was alive the entire time, so actually neither player would have been able to pick that up. But now Kaiserklein even going to pull trick his Explorer to get back to his base a little bit sooner. And that little micro trick might actually incline me to believe Kaiserklein's probably going to send 1,000 wood as his first shipment, especially seeing that Garja is so much later to age 3 than him. I say that kind of inclined me to believe that Kaiserklein would have gone for 1,000 wood, because by pulling that Explorer and getting it to a safe location sooner, you know, he might be able to build a town center off the back of sending 1,000 wood and go for a greedier line of play in this France mirror. But Kaiserklein going in deep with his Hussars here, getting you know, kind of caught by these Hussars of Garja here, trading them off 2 Hussars for 2 Coureurs de Bois. Seems like a good trade to me, especially considering in France mirrors, players typically don't go for the veteran Hussar upgrade. So, an early Fortress Age is the best time to utilize these Hussars, get the best value out of them as you can, because the later the game goes on, the less valuable they are, as, you know, your other units get teched up further and further. Might even pick off a 3rd Coureur de Bois here. A little bit lazy by Garja there. Garja is going to pick off the native scout, but I think losing the Explorer, another 45 experience points, putting a bunch of Coureurs de Bois in the town center, and 8 skirms first shipment. Aggressive play from Kaiserklein. 5 Dragoons, the first shipment from Garja, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, because 5 Dragoons aren't going to be able to engage this 10 skirmisher 5 Dragoon mass from Kaiserklein. At least it's also putting Garja a little bit behind in the skirmisher count. Now Garja's going to get some pot shots off on the Dragoons there from Kaiserklein. Second shipment for Kaiserklein being 5 Dragoons, going to bolster his mass as well. I think he's going to keep up some skirmisher production in his base. 3 skirmishers on the way, not the best batch, but that's alright because he's still ahead of Garja in terms of the skirmisher count. And just a second here, I'm going to readjust the game volume because I think it's a little bit too loud, at least in my ear it is. Certainly. Alright, we missed some some fire, but Garja not too happy with the padding there, but 8 skirmishers, second shipment for him. He's actually quite a ways ahead in terms of the military count, at least, I mean, rather the skirmisher count. Let's take a look there. 20 skirmishers to 16. And you also have to consider that not all of Kaiserklein's skirmisher count is sent together. Kaiserklein actually being a little bit too honest with his shipment order there. Although I think just looking at the scores, Garja is a little bit confused as to why his score is so much lower. Kaiserklein, in fact, giving a little bit of insight to his rationale behind not sending 1,000 wood as the first shipment as France. We did see also Kaiserklein pull tricking a little bit, kind of ejecting himself from that situation where he was outmassed in terms of skirmishers and not wanting to engage. But third shipment could be falconets, and with that, I think maybe Kaiserklein is going to be on the move, or in fact, maybe he's kind of waiting to lay a trap, waiting for Garja to overextend, and then maybe get like a side positioning where, you know, he can kind of trap Garja and prevent him from escaping so as to lengthen the time that he can DPS down that skirmisher mass of Garja with his falconets and force a commitment from Garja. But Garja not being too unaware himself and going back, regrouping with 2 falconets of his own. So in terms of shipment order, it's basically been completely mirrored sans some reversals of the order of the first and second shipment in the Fortress Age for both players. But at least in terms of Age 3 engagements, not much has gone on. I think the deciding factor was those initial Hussar fights that went on in Colonial Age. Both players building 9 Hussars in Kaiserklein, but Kaiserklein getting the better trade of it. 2 falconets now laid out. Kaiserklein lost his Explorer. Not a terribly big deal. Of course, that Explorer isn't terribly relevant besides building town centers, at least with European civilizations. 2 falconets eking forward, gonna get some shots off on Garja. Focus fired down, but out of line of sight, so he wasn't able to get an additional shot off on the skirmisher mass. Garja now coming forward with his falconets, wasting the shots on the skirmishers, but Garja not in line of sight with his falconets. Both players getting a shot off. An additional skirmisher lost for Garja there. Ooh. Losing 2 Dragoons, but focus firing down the falconet. Garja's coming forward. He killed the falconet of his own, not for a terrible trade by himself, only losing 1 Dragoon and 1 additional skirmisher there. But Garja is actually behind on the skirmisher count, just slightly. But besides that, in the back of it, Kaiserklein has not only 10 Cuirassiers, but also the 3 Hussars that he came off the back of in the colonial engagements. So with even skirmisher counts and even dragoon counts, Kaiserklein is a full 30 score, 50 score ahead now. With 10 Cuirassiers coming into the engagement now, I think they're going to absolutely crush the fight here. With only 10 dragoons being the anti-cavalry for Garja and getting split off from the Cuirassier, excuse me, the skirmisher mass. A decisive game one. It was 15 minutes, but, you know, for the longest time, yeah, it really came down to the initial engagements with the Hussar that I feel kind of decided this fight. And that's going to put Kaiserklein up 1-0 in this series so far. But let's take a look at the military unit population. That's the buildings graph. Yeah, you can see in the military population, it doesn't look like much, but, you know, Kaiserklein is quite a ways ahead in these engagements. Because he won the fights with his 5 Hussars, while, like I said, you know, it looks like the population is even, you also have to consider that Garja had lower HP Hussars for the bulk of it, so even when he was able to preserve them, he basically had less fighting power and couldn't make engagements around the map. From that point, Kaiserklein was able to put Garja on the back foot, and while they were both aging in transition to age 3, Kaiserklein was able to raid in Garja's base, kill off a few villagers, idle his town center quite a bit. And let's just take a look at the idle villagers. Yeah, look at that, a huge spike. 18 idle villagers going up to age 3 really puts him on the back foot. I did miss it, but there were a few Vil picks for Garja as well, killing off some of Kaiserklein's villagers. But I think at that stage in the game, it was just, you know, pot shots and not something terribly relevant, like when, you know, Garja was idled in his base for such a long time in that age up to the Fortress Age. And that kind of put Kaiserklein in the driver's seat to steer his victory for that match. And that's what we saw in Game 1. Okay, gonna have to back out temporarily while we wait for Garja to get in the correct slot.
Gold or silver account required to send voice.
Okay. So I think what was going on there was Garja was restarting just to best prevent the sound bug. So of course we're waiting for him to come back online. And then we'll boot up with the second match. Of course, let's take a look. You can see perfectly there the beautiful, beautiful black screen. The best thing to avoid the invite spammer, but let me just throw up the overlay just temporarily while we wait for Garja to come back online so we can start Game 2. Of course, the map pool for this series, Game 1 was on Florida. Let me check what's Game 2. It's a best of 5 series, so no matter what, we're going to go to 3 games. The second map is going to be played on Kamchatka, and Game 3 is going to be played on New England. And should we go to a 4th and 5th games, those will be played on Thar Desert and High Plains, respectively. Both players banned Baja California and Deccan from the map pool. I think Kaiserklein chose to ban Baja, and then Garja very recently chose to ban Deccan. Like I mentioned, Kamchatka is going to be the map going into Game 2. That's a land map with, you know, a middle... How do you describe it? It's a trade line that runs close to both players' town centers with 3 trading posts. So not quite a stagecoach map, per se, because I think both players are entitled to one of those town centers. Excuse me, one of those trade posts. Basically, it's in the no build radius of each player's town center. So at the most, I think you can get 2 town centers. Excuse me. At the most, on Kamchatka, you can get 2 trading posts, is what I was trying to say. For the life of me. So now we're booting up. So it'll be just momentarily, we'll be beginning game 2. Of course, Kaiserklein's going to have to lock his civilization, and on the map Kamchatka, I might expect Kaiserklein to lock his Germany. His main civilization, and a pretty popular civilization to play on Kamchatka. And as for Garja's counterpick to that, while I don't feel it's the wisest choice, I could expect him to probably go for the German Mir. But what I'd more like to see out of him is probably something along the lines of maybe Iroquois. I know Iroquois is a civilization he's been playing the most recently, and I don't think Germany versus Iroquois is a terrible matchup either way. Whereas when you go for the Mir, you're kind of relying on having better mechanics than your opponent. And, you know, despite Garja's prowess with micromanagement being one of Garja's better skills, going against Kaiserklein against his main civilization, when Kaiserklein is also known for his famous micro. And this is a matchup Kaiserklein specializes in. I just think it's not the wisest choice, but as I am so glad to reveal, it is going to end up being a mirror between these two players. Kaiserklein locked Germany, and Garja going for Germany himself. Well, Garja hasn't mentioned it. He did switch to Germany. He isn't necessarily locked into playing it quite yet. But should we start game 2, that's when he will have no choice but to be playing the German civilization, even if we were to need a rehost. So far in this series, Kaiserklein is up 1-0 to Garja, so he only needs to win 2 more games in order to move on to the round of 8. And in the round of 8, the winner of this match is going to be playing against Kaiserklein. Of course, Kaiserklein winning a very close series, or a relatively close series, depending on some players' expectations. Kaiserklein won in the round of 16 versus I Am Turk 3-2. Of course, I Am Turk being one of the up-and-comers. I think Kaiserklein was seed number 7. I Am Turk was seed number 23, but it ended up being a relatively close series, like I mentioned, as per player expectations. But thank you all for tuning in today. Of course, we're going to be locking into Game 2 on Kamchatka between Kaiserklein and Garja. It's a round of 16 series in the New World Championship Qualifiers 2019. Of course, this is the second game. The first game was a France Mir on Florida, which Kaiserklein came out the victor. And this is a best of 5 series, so it's first to 3 points. Kaiserklein only needs 2 more wins to qualify him for the round of 8. And 1 step closer to earning his spot at the top 8 LAN Invitational being held this July in Manchester. Of course, spawning in the northwest is going to be Kaiserklein playing in the color blue. It's a German Mir, and so in the south of the map we have Garja playing Germany as well. He's in the color red. Now on Kamchatka, a lot of players like to go for this central trading post location. Principally, I think nowadays, because that's where the most number of goats, or the highest concentration of goats spawn. We can see 2 goats being picked up by Garja there, but Kaiserklein's Explorer in hot pursuit, going to get both. Garja was pretty keen about that, killed one of the goats before Kaiserklein was able to seal it, but Kaiserklein did come away from that engagement with at least 1 goat of his own. And I think Garja actually looking for the second batch of goats. Of course, there's a patch of 2 goats that spawns over here, and usually a patch of 2 goats that spawns over there. But I think with the most recent iterations of Kamchatka, the treasures have kind of been nerfed in this central location. I think they used to spawn like a 90 wood treasure in this location, 80 food or 60 food, or sometimes an 85 coin treasure over here. But as you can see, there was only a 45, or excuse me, even a 35 food treasure. Not terribly high value, not something the players are gonna jockey for in the early stages of the match, especially when they know that each other's explorer is actually looming just around the corner. But ooh, a big steal here for Garja. Gonna pick up 2 of Kaiserklein's scouted goats, and Kaiserklein is actually coming away from this, you know, scouting pattern with nothing besides a freight tag, the pet macaque. He has no goats of his own, whereas Garja was able to pick up 3. He would have even been able to get a 4th if he hadn't had to kill one over on this side. But looking at where the biggest treasures are going to be, it's actually towards the southwest end of the map. You can see 75 food being picked up or creeped by Kaiserklein, but Garja going to come in for the steal, using the crack shot to finish off that last snow leopard. Both players explorers at high health points, but Garja a little bit behind, just 20 health points. So Garja is definitely not going to want to stay there, because if they were to keep on fighting indefinitely, Kaiserklein would come out the victor in that situation. Picking up another goat. If he's cheeky about it, maybe even using the goat to, you know, kind of block Kaiserklein's explorer and escape the snare. But even the macaque going to come in, and that's also going to obscure the pathing of Garja's exploring. Oh, look at that! In fact, the macaque actually ruining the pathing of Kaiserklein's explorer rather than Garja. Of course, now using that macaque, it has a superior speed to, never mind. Just, that's going to be too micro-intensive, and Garja is too close to his base, so Kaiserklein's just going to concede that point. The macaque actually obscured the path of Kaiserklein's explorer, and Garja was actually able to escape from the snare there. Even going to pick up another 50 wood in his base. Not terrible, of course. He's sitting with an explorer that has a few less hit points, but it really doesn't matter terribly much. Going to be picking up that trading post safe in his base, whereas Kaiserklein is still distributing, still gathering up the wood to be able to build his trade post, and his explorer is quite far from the safe location of the trading post close to his town center, so I think maybe he'll go for this middle TP. Perhaps not. I think he's actually going to go for the market right here. He's actually getting placer mines at present. Just making the best use of his time while he's waiting for his explorer to catch up with the trade post. Let's look at the Travois man. I think Kaiserklein's going to be a little bit slow to build that trade post and actually going to miss the pass. It's not the most impactful. It's going to be missing 85 or 90 experience points, but while that's not optimal per se, it's not the biggest deal. Probably not going to define the game. But Garja did come off the better for that. Of course, I think he got an additional 85 experience points and came away with his explorer alive. So he's quite content there. Now, what we can expect from a German mirror, I actually quite like the direction that the ESOC patch has, or the metagame for the German mirror has developed on the ESOC patch. Of course, Eulens are nerfed and Doppelsodners are buffed. So in fact, while on the RE patch, usually you would see players go for something like a 5 cav semi-FF, maybe a 10 cav if they were really cheeky about it. The general build order that you see from both players is going to be 3 settler wagons first, followed by 700 wood as the second shipment in Colonial Age, and then third shipment in Colonial Age being 700 coin to either go for a Colonial Age timing push or to age up to the Fortress Age. First building going to be a stable for Kaiserklein, and for Garja it's actually going to be a barracks. But usually what you see from players in the German mirror on the ESOC patch is that they actually like to go for a mixed composition of Dopp Eulen. Both players will build a stable and barracks in the Colonial Age. Sometimes the order, of course, it changes. This time Kaiserklein building the stable first, Garja building the barracks first, so Dopp's going to be in queue for Garja. Kaiserklein gonna have some Yulins. Usually what that means is Garja is going to go for a defensive start right off the back. He's going to use his Doppelsoldners, split off 2 or 1 to 2 of them, to be able to guard the hunts in his base while the Yulins are coming in to raid. And instead, Garja actually comes off with a slightly better or stronger or scarier early colonial timing. But Garja actually getting 5 Doppelsoldners, that's actually quite amiable for him, because it's actually pretty difficult to gather all the resources to get out those Doppelsoldners out as quickly as he did get them. In fact, I think the Doppelsoldner batch for Garja came out sooner than the Yulin batch for Kaiserklein. And I don't even think Kaiserklein got a full batch of Yulins as his first batch. So 700 wood still in queue for Kaiserklein, still in being sent from the home city. Whereas Garja, like I mentioned, actually it's going to be 700 coin here. That's particularly interesting. Coming with the better XP streamline, Garja was able to get his 700 wood in first, but Minutemen being called for Kaiserklein here because he's already committed to sending 700 coin, meaning he's going for a straight semi-fast fortress. 5 cab semi-fast fortress, or maybe 3 cab, I'm not quite sure what it was. Using the Yulins to snare, but getting in some good TPS. Killing off 2 of those Yulins, but losing 1 Doppelsoldner so far. The Minutemen are in snare. Oh, weird attack move, I don't quite like that. Trying to focus fire down the Doppelsoldners now. Liable to go down, it seems like 3 Doppelsoldners have gone down so far. Just 2 Yulins being lost for Kaiserklein, but you also have to consider the Minutemen were lost there, so that's 300 resources, 150 food, 150 coin. But utilizing these Minutemen, the trade post is going to be alive and still needing to be sieged down by Riot's units. But just momentarily, Kaiserklein is going to be up to age 3 with a shipment ready. Probably going to be the 8 skirmisher shipment. Yeah, like I said, the contemporary German mirror doesn't usually lend itself to a 5 cav semi-FF. I think the trade was relatively even for both players. Like I mentioned, Kaiserklein lost, 2 or 3 Yulins there, as well as his Minutemen, whereas Riot lost... Oh, and Kaiserklein also lost his trade post, whereas Riot lost 3 Doppelsoldners, 2 Yulins. I think that was about it. Seems like Garja now distributing to age 3, but continuing to push very, very aggressively in Kaiserklein's base. I don't quite like this play because there you go. The shipment from Kaiserklein gonna come in, gonna allow him to DPS down the rest of Kaiserklein's units, but it looks like my call. Wow, this is very weird. This is a very strange build order from Garja. Actually, the third shipment in the Colonial Age was 8 Expomen. A nice micro trick there, using the unit formations to excel the Doppelsoldners forward to defend himself against the Yulins. But while these Expomen are technically a counter unit to the War Wagons, they're just too low in mass to be able to threaten these War Wagons terribly too much. Basically, all the Doppelsoldners being picked off by the War Wagons in the town center fire. In fact, 1 settler wagon being saved from very, very low health hit points. And now the engagement where Garja has no anti-cavalry while Kaiserklein still has 5 Yulins. And is going to be able to take down that entire 8 Expo and shipment for minimal loss. Basically, taking a lot of damage on 1 war wagon there, but only losing a single Yulin. Besides maybe a bit of gathering time by having some of his villagers penned up in his town center. And that's kind of why I said it was a strange build order for Riot. I didn't like that he was staying in directly under Kaiserklein's town center for so long. And at the end of it, he comes away having lost a full shipment. That was 8 Expomen, 2 Yulins, as well as a 5 Expomen batch, 6 or 8 Doppelsoldners that he had trained. And all Kaiserklein lost was maybe 2 houses, some gathering time with his villagers, a single Yulin, and a little bit of health points on a war wagon. And if you take a look at the scores, it's not quite reflected yet. The scores are relatively even. Kaiserklein only leading by 5 points at the moment. A villager going down for Riot, that's going to settle the score. It looks like the first shipment, you can take a look, 1,000 coin. Every single villager on coin at the moment. It seems like Garja's actually probably got Hessian Jaegers in queue for him, and we can see first shipment for Kaiserklein was Jaegers as well. Or rather, not the first shipment, but the second shipment in the Fortress Age. And I suppose that was a lot of the reason why Kaiserklein's score was deflated so much, that it looked very even. But if you look at the scores now, they're still not going to be terribly accurate. And the reason for that being is that I think Garja's got a mercenary shipment of his own in queue and on the way from the home city. But still, he's going to be on the back end here, having aged up so much later. Whoa, GG being called. Wow. Oh my. Yeah, just committing to the wrong mercenary shipment there. Even if Garja were able to send those those 9 Black Riders, they would have been hard countered by the 8 Hessian Jaeger shipment of Kaiserklein. Not the best call from Garja there, and while I think, maybe Garja still stood a chance in this game despite, the weird, or the kind of wasting the units in Age 2. It's going to be called early, just making the wrong decision with which mercenaries he wanted to ship, and that's going to put him too far behind in this particular game, and going to lead Kaiser. Oh, I forgot to update the scores. You'll have to excuse me. We did back out temporarily, and I think that's going to be the same deal here. I'll throw up the overlay while Garja is restarting for the sound bug. Of course, Kaiserklein was up 1 game there. Winning the game on Kamchatka is going to put Kaiserklein up 2-0, and now it's going to be match point going into Game 3, which is going to be played on Baja, California.
Gold or silver account required to send voice.
So of course, we did get some big donations earlier in the stream. I did say I was going to shout them out after the first game, and I do apologize for forgetting, but now seems like a good opportunity to take a look. Of course, it was How to Talk Please. I think you came in with the $50 donation. That's really, really appreciated. Of course, all of our events on ESOC are player funded. We are by the community, for the community. And so when we do get donations, those help to fund our future tournaments. And, the current tournament, the New World Championship, is actually being sponsored by Escape. They're putting down the $4,000 for this event. But of course, if you want to see more AoE3 content run in the future, donations to the stream are always very, very appreciated. Just trying to see here. It seems unfortunately I'm not able to pull up the past donations at present. I apologize for that. I think it was Mr. Jose Aragancio for the $25 donation. Thank you very much for that earlier as well. I wouldn't want to forget that. I do remember it, and we do appreciate your donation. But Garja logged offline just to check his decks real quick. It seems both players ready. Gonna take down the overlay and reveal what matchups we have in store. So it's actually going to be Ottoman versus Spain, a classic matchup on a classic map. Game 3 is going to be played on New England. So actually I got that wrong. I think I mentioned that it was Baja California, but in fact Baja California was a banned map. Kaiserklein banned that map. So game 3, if you'll excuse me, is going to be played on New England. And like I mentioned, it's Ottoman as Kaiserklein's locked civilization in Spain as Garja's counter pick. Now this is a classic matchup. In fact, I remember, I forget if it was Garja versus Shimras that was played specifically on this map way back in PK Clan tournament number 4. I don't know if it was Shimras in particular, but there were a lot of tournament games played in this particular matchup, especially when the tournaments used to be ran on vanilla Age of Empires, or Age of Empires without the Asian and War Chiefs expansions. Of course, Ottoman and Spain were the two strongest civilizations back in the day, and on a map like New England, where they both have boat potential as well as this very juicy stagecoach line. Although I think back in the day that wasn't usually what you would see out of players. Most often you would see a fast fortress from both. And in fact, that might still be what we see today. He's going to go for this northernmost trading post while Kaiserklein is rushing down to the south one. I think the reason for that is because, Ottoman, they start with more wood crates than the usual civilization, whereas Garja over here is going to have to chop in order to be able to build that Age 1 trading post. And so while Kaiserklein's able to expedite this trade post to the south of the map, it's a little bit safer for Garja to go for that northernmost one. I just feel like pointing that out. It's not going to be terribly impactful. I think Kaiserklein just comes out maybe 10 seconds ahead in terms of the XP drop-off. So like I said, it's not a big deal. But very nice treasures on this map. We can see Kaiserklein now going for a 90 food treasure, and Garja matching that with a 95 wood treasure of his own. Taking a look at the decks. It's going to be a land-based agenda for Kaiserklein. Of course, we do see the water cards for him in both Colonial and Fortress Age, but I think what that's primarily going to be used for, unless Garja goes for an especially cheeky build order, is that's going to be shipped to the pond directly. So, I mean, you can kind of consider that naval gameplay, but I don't think either player is going to try to commit to a very water-based economic game plan. And likewise for Garja, he's got the Age 2 warship cards. Excuse me, the Age 2 and Age 3 warship cards, but no economic naval shipments. Nothing like, even a warship upgrade card. He doesn't have schooners, he doesn't have a rendering plant. So while we might see some boats in the pond, I don't expect either player to go for this beautiful coast, beautiful New England coastline. Kaiserklein is already on the way up to age 3. It seems a little bit faster than usual, but it might be around like a 3-minute 50, 3-minute 55 second age up time. 2 villagers coming forward. It seems like this is actually going to be a proxy Jan rush for Kaiserklein. Going for, you know, a completely viable build order, but still a bit cheeky out of him. Rather than something a little bit more conventional like, you know, a fast fortress or any variant of that type. So Kaiserklein does have 200 wood gathered, but he still has villagers on wood. So that would incline me to believe he's actually probably going to go for August Jan. And while it is a proxy rush, it's not going to be as all in as a double racks Jan rush. Let's see, still gathering wood over here. Normally the telltale sign of August Jan is that the Ottoman player will gather 300 wood in the transition rather than just 200 wood. If he were just gathering 200 wood, that would lead us to believe he's going to build 2 houses and 2 barrackses. We can see barracks, barracks actually, so he overgathered wood a little bit. I think Kaiserklein's going to have a little bit of additional wood there, or maybe he's just building 3 houses. It is going to get scouted out by Garja, so Garja does know it's coming, but it's still going to be a little bit tricky for him to be able to hold this. Defensive outpost, not even being placed by the coastline, just being placed directly under the town center. So the first batch of 5 Janissaries came out of that first barracks, and I think Kaiserklein was waiting to queue up the next batch of units together so he could have them in unison. Or maybe that was in the incorrect call. Another batch of 4 popping out, his second barracks here, and 1 in queue likely from this northernmost barracks. So 9 Janissaries. Waiting for that batch of 5 reinforcement. Now 14 Janissaries. Even more than a 12 Sepoy rush. At a very sick timing. 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Town center gonna pick off one of the Janissaries there, but not choosing to engage. Kaiserklein saw the outpost, saw the town center. And in fact, maybe he even saw colonial militia being sent for Garja, and that was why he went back. But Garja is, of course, committing to the all-in here. He went 700 coin straight fast fortress. He is on the way up. Another reinforcing batch of units from Kaiserklein there, as well as 3 husks being shipped. Gonna target down this outpost, take it down extremely quickly. Limit the DPS output that Riot is capable of. A villager getting taken down here, and 5 vills as the 4th shipment for Riot, but I think that might have just been a little bit too greedy. Because, of course, as we can see, basically every single villager that Garja has is being penned up in the town center at the moment. Garja does have the resources in order to send Minutemen. But losing every single house of his. 7 Redeleros. The next shipment out for Riot, but ooh, with the 4 hussars that are getting caught by the other hussars, Garja's forced to engage here, and you know he is able to call Minutemen being called, but there are a lot of Janissaries here, and Redeleros do not perform especially well against those. Some micro coming out from Kaiserklein as well, A lot of the Rodelleros were running around, trying to catch up to that Hussar. Nice DPS. Every unit of Riot being taken down there. But with the town center fire, that wasn't a terrible fight for Garja. You know, all things considered. You know, he did invest a lot in that. He lost his age up bonus. He lost Minutemen, the 7 Rodellero shipment. But Kaiserklein also lost a shipment. He lost his 3 Hussars. He lost about 12 to 15 Janissaries. And, you know, with the Colonial Militia shipment there, I'm not sure if Garja does have another shipment on the way. But he is working to get his infrastructure back up. He is able to send a shipment at the very least, whereas previously he wouldn't have been able to. Back up to 40 house population. An artillery foundry being built in the back here. Kaiserklein as well, 600 coin. Map sucks, by the way. And some more trade posts coming out for Kaiserklein as well. There you go, 5 Lancers being the first shipment in the Fortress Age. Although I guess if you want to consider 7 Rodelleros as kind of the first shipment in Fortress Age, as it popped out exactly at the same time as Garja's 4 Hussar age up bonus. This would be the second Fortress Age shipment. But also building a stable for Garja. It seems like he's going to fully commit to making Lancers as his compositional choice against what the Ottoman player is going to be fielding. And that is going to fare a little bit better for Garja than if Kaiserklein had chosen to build a stable instead of an artillery foundry. In fact, I don't think Kaiserklein is actually going to get a lot of use out of this artillery foundry anytime soon. Even if he were to train something like 5 Ibis guns, they're not going to be matching up very well to this scant Spanish composition. Even worse is they perform very, very poorly against the town center. And while a colonial militia town center isn't strong enough to one-shot KO an obelisk gun in totality, it would put it down to just 5 hit points. So if if Garja had the most precise micro, something he would be able to do is, you know, focus fire an obelisk gun down with his town center and then pop out like 5 villagers and, you know, use those to focus fire down that obelisk gun for the last remaining shots. 12 Pike's going to be the 3rd shipment for Garja, but while they might be able to sponge a lot of damage against these oof. Yeah, pikemen not a great unit against Janissaries. Oh, that's an interesting little trick I didn't know of. Interesting little trick. I didn't know about that. But as I was trying to explain earlier, these pikemen aren't going to match up well against Kaiserklein's Ottoman composition. Pikemen don't deal a lot of damage against Janissaries or obelisk guns. The best that he could, hope with this pikeman shipment is to have them in cover mode and have Kaiserklein not focus fire down the Lancers, which are going to be the main damage output source for Garja's Spanish composition. Oh, you can even see it worked there. Kaiserklein was able to successfully remove some of that wall foundation. You know, funny enough, I think Garja was actually a part of the redesign on this map. Of course, RE Patch New England is a little bit unbalanced. So we asked Garja to create another version of this map that spawned the mines a little bit more consistently. But I suppose something that was neglected was the hunt situation. I suppose to compensate for that, we might have to see Garja dive into the Sardinian Ocean and maybe fish for some of that food. But I don't think we'll see that this game. Stagger mode Opus guns coming out, just in anticipation for the 2 Falconet shipment from Garja. 2 galleys being called. I like that. Not going to be terribly relevant at this stage. Not at least until the engagement comes around to the north side of the map. But nice fights there. Seems like 3 Garachistas going to go down. A nice snipe by the Obus guns there, losing 6. 8 Obus guns for that, but taking down both of the Falconets. Now all the Janissaries in melee, or actually just half of them, being focus fired down on the Garachistas there. And that's going to be GG from Garja, a quick 3-0. And that's going to be congratulations to Kaiserklein, moving himself, like I mentioned, 1 step closer to qualifying for the LAN event. He's going to be going to the round of 8 against Kainisi. And that's definitely a match to anticipate. Both 2 top French players, Kaiserklein and Kainisi. Kaiserklein being seed number 2 and Kainisi being seed number 7. And even the loser of that round of 8 match still going to have another opportunity at qualifying. They'll be seeded into the lower bracket round 6. Garja is still critiquing his gameplay here. But I want to take just a second, probably to highlight, the military unit population. So this trade that went under Garja's town center actually went pretty even, but you have to consider. Let's just take a look at the buildings. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 2 houses and an outpost. And a lot of idle time. Let's take a look at the idle villager graph. Oops. A huge spike. So much infrastructure was lost for Garja when Kaiserklein went for that timing push. And even though the fight went about even for Garja, by losing so much infrastructure and being forced to chop to be able to build more buildings and get his house population back up, build that stable. And then after that, the hunt situation wasn't terribly good in his base, and he just couldn't get the production necessary to be able to contest Kaiserklein's Ottoman composition. And eventually, Kaiserklein even took the entire stagecoach line, sieged down Garja's trade post, and established it all to himself. And of course, like I mentioned, that's going to be the entire match.